And welcome everyone. Today I wanted to share a few tips on how I go about separating a two-piece mast that is stuck together. The first tip consists in bending and rotating the mast to grind the sand or the salt that prevent the mast from sliding apart. I like to use my whole body weight on the mast to get as much leverage as possible. I often sit or lean on it to crush the dirt inside the junction. The second tip is to apply tiny droplets of penetrating oil onto the gap. The oil will seep in and help break the seal. If you don't mind the very slight cosmetic damage that may result at the edges of the junction, I find the next tip to be very effective in getting the halves apart. I use flat screwdriver bits to fit in the gap, increasing their size gradually. I start with the smallest one and use bigger ones as the gap widens. First, I locate the widest gap to fit in the smallest bit. If needed, I rotate the mast around and push down to create a gap wide enough. I try to insert it as far in as it will go. Then I rotate the mast around and press down. As I do this, the bit is pressed in from both halves, which get pushed away from one another. The gap below now lets me insert a wider bit, and as the halves separate, the top bit might fall off. I keep repeating the process going around the gap. As the bits falls off, it becomes convenient to have a 1-year-old around to help pick him up. Thank you, Leanna. When the gap is wide enough, I use 2 bits together instead. This increases the surface and speeds things up. When the gap is about 1 big screwdriver bit apart, all the way around, then it means it's time to move on to the last tip, the 2-boom technique. Depending on how stuck the mast is, I may only use 1 boom. On the most stubborn masts, I did have to often rely on 2 booms, one on either side of the junction. The clamps must be tight as they cannot slide at all. I have used non-slip kitchen rubber pads, but inner tubes work just as well, although they may need to be sanded rough for maximum grip. In this scenario, 1 boom was enough and I used a piece of inner tube to help my grip. First, I try to stick to one direction using an unscrewing motion and pulling towards me. Once it becomes easy, then I start going back and forth. I keep pulling slightly away as the halves are rotating. Here I also hold the boom with my foot so I can pull harder. At this stage, if the mast won't budge, even with 2 booms, then I go back to tip number 1 and try bending the mast in all directions to grind the dirt inside. After enough bending, and with the oil slowly seeping in, eventually the mast should surrender. Voila! I hope these tips help you like they helped me. Please share your own tips in the comments below. Always looking forward to hearing from you. Happy sailing! Ciao!